I just realized something. We are very fortunate that within just 1 week, we have 2 people on the podcast that essentially created a complete new product category in this industry. Last week we had Thomas Blug, who when he created the AMP1 essentially established at least to my understanding of the market and to what I've seen up to that point, who created this like paddleboard amp that was actually usable instead of like bringing your 100 watt head or whatever you played before. And now 1 week passes, and we talk to a person who pretty much revolutionized and invented a load box that's more than a load box. Because I mean, we had load boxes before, but they weren't working very well, and they kind of sucked regarding tone. And we also had speaker simulations before, sometimes even in combination, but they didn't sound very well, and they also looked shitty. So, and then you come around, and it must have been like 2008-ish, something like that, 2008, 2009, something like that. And then you come around, and you come up with something that combines these 2 things in general, but you make them usable for people in a way that wasn't there before. When did you first realize that you just created something that might be, a game changer, essentially?
That's a tough question. I don't consider changing the game. That was never the goal.
You're not getting enough credit for it. But if we just look at the facts, and this does not come out of my love for you and for the company and the stuff that you've done, that I'm using on a daily basis, has nothing to do with it. I'm trying to look at it from an overview of the market, and I look what was there before, and I look what is there now, and where you're standing. And to me, you're far away from everybody else, because every time somebody kind of settles into like, okay, now the guys have done the Captor, have done the Captor X, they've done this and this and this, and you think now they might have done everything possible. You come around with the Opus, or you come around with Genome, and when you're like, okay, they're doing it again. So you're constantly you're constantly revolutionizing things people are used to in a certain way, and like, oh, this is even better. So, and you're not getting enough credit for it. That's I'm just going to put out there.
I don't know. I think it's selling a new concept is the stupidest kind of business you may want to enter.
Yes.
Like history proves that when you're the one coming with a new concept, you'll never win. No. Like Apple made the iPad, but did not invent tablet, but made them good or nice to use. I think our concept, and let's be a little bit modest here, like the concept of playing an amp silently, I did not invent. It existed in the 70s, but like you said, with the progress of digital in the 2000s, it was, to me, obvious that we could make that concept evolve a little bit. Also, IR loaders. There was no IR loading capacity in any product when we released the first Torpedo Cap.
Yeah, exactly.
And now it's mandatory. If you don't have that in your product as a digital modeler, you're probably making a mistake.
Yeah.
But in 2010, that was very new. But the being new or being innovative, that's tough, because it took me, and I still have to explain the concept. It took me probably until we had some competition on the digital loadbox stuff with very good products from UA or Boss, those are very good products. They took the concept and they used their marketing, which is awesome and big money, to actually make it more popular among people. The coming with a new concept costs a lot of money, because you need to explain. And to this day, I'm meeting with audio engineers or guitarists who are like, "What? How? No, it will kill the amp. No, like I've sold tens of thousands of them, and so far I didn't have to repair that many amps, so they must be working. Yeah, well, Frank, you wouldn't believe I have that not every week, but every time I do a trade show and I'm on the ground talking to like normal people, not you guys who are educated and that's your job to know those things. But when I talk to normal guitarists, could even be friends, I still have to explain the concept because they don't see the point. Like they know modeling since the pod, so like late 1990s or early 2000s. Oh, they know modeling. They've heard about it. They may or may not like or use it. But what we do is very niche compared to, oh, let's get rid of amps and let's use this because it's better. We don't get rid of amps, but we still use digital, but it's kind of a weird mix. So yeah, I mean, it's still a very niche product. Genome is different because it's amp modeling as a whole, like the entire chain, which is, by the way, that was my initial project. The torpedo stuff actually had some success, but that was not what I was willing to do. I was willing to do amp modeling. The speaker side of this took off and took most of my time when it took off, but the real project was amp modeling.
Okay.
Because in 2006 when I started, I believe the XFX was just out, like it was the first version, and the rest pretty much sucked at that time.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Like big time. And when you were using a Line 6 pod and you would put an IR loader after it, it was better, actually significantly better. So that's when I knew that, okay, that part is important. Probably we should spend more time on it. And the fractal stuff was very good on the front end with the preamp and amp modeling, where other companies like Boss or Lansing were pretty bad at it. I mean, not bad. It was the best at that time. Okay, let's not rewrite history. It was the best, but it was very much lacking in comparison to a proper amp or an amp with IRs, or it was very far from it. But nowadays things have changed.
Yeah, but that was because there was a complete different approach that Fractal, Cliff in this case, took, where he said, like, if you want to do this right, you need more processing power, and you need to implement this for the processor which has enough power for the algorithm to take full advantage of the processing power. And that's not something that Boss or Line 6 did. They put some, as to my understanding, and I'm not like the super engineer, but they put chips in there which were pretty commercial for the most part, and they wanted to sell a product on a higher commercial level, whereas Fractal started out way smaller, but people who really were serious about tone were like, oh, okay, now that's a serious contender, obviously.
To me, the main difference is this. In 2005, or 2006, I don't know exactly when they started the project at Fractal, but it must have taken them at least a couple of years to get that thing working. Most of the digital stuff in our industry, so the guitar industry, guitar and bass, was for cheap devices application only.
Yeah.
Like you had Eventide trying to sell those absurdly expensive stuffs to studios.
Yeah.
Okay. But apart from them, digital meant cheap.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you would buy the tiny Marshall or the tiny Boss, all that stuff below $500, and you would buy that because you couldn't afford like the proper digital devices that were only for studios and some professional players, but the all the digital stuff was cheap, and that was it.
Yeah.
Like solid state has to be cheap, digital has to be cheap, and what Fractal changed, what I give them full credit for that, and is following up the in the steps of Eventide, trying to make actually high quality, high end digital devices for guitar and bass. And that was, as a concept, that was quite new, like trying to sell digital to hardcore tube lovers. there was a challenge here. And they succeeded because, well, two things. To loop up with the distributors conversation earlier, Fractal went direct. So they used the new power of the internet to sell direct.
Yeah.
And that was rather new in 2005 and 6, forums especially. So they used that to sell, because I can guarantee you, if they were using a distributor in the loop and some retailers, and same with Scamper, the prices would have been crazy.
Yes.
It's already expensive, but it would have been like nuts. And not double the price, but close to it. So nobody would have bought it. So they had to use that. And it was possible thanks to the internet. So it's really a combination of things that made it possible. But again, selling high-end digital devices to end users happened thanks to, well, musicians on tour had to become oh, sorry, I have the stupid Apple thing that
No worries.
when I do signs. So professional. Oh, don't start with that, because I know all the gestures and some of them are very, very dumb, but it's fun. And so professional touring acts started to two things: to become smaller or more efficient. Even bands like Metallica later on went into that route, like trying to be more efficient with their gear, and also starting to want to play silently on stage.
Yeah.
So those high-end devices actually were covering two things. You can play silent if you need to within ears, and your rig is suddenly, like, you remember those stupid big fridges full of like 48 unit racks, and you have 3 of them just for guitars.
Yeah.
Okay, that's gone. That's not coming back. That is gone.
Yes.
And because with devices more compact nowadays, again, thanks to progress in electronics, DSPs are cheaper, converters are cheaper, and the quality is awesome. You can get a very good sounding rig that fits in probably 4U, 6U, and you don't need more. And it saves a lot in touring costs.
Yes.
So it's a combination. It's like we call the perfect storm, a combination of several events, people getting smaller rigs, quality improving, prices decreasing on parts, and people getting acquainted with digital and being a little bit less afraid of digital in their everyday life.
Yes.
It's not just guitar. It's also your TV. It's also your car radio, which is digital. It's also a lot of things. Like, not everyone has a computer these days, but they have this, which is a computer.
Essentially.
And using a tablet to play guitar, it's not that exotic anymore, since the sound is not terrible. It's actually quite good nowadays.
Yeah.
So it's a really combination of things. So us, with the concept of the Torpedo line of products, it was really tapping into that. I started with forums and social media when they started as well. Like, when I started, YouTube was in its infancy. It was just the beginning. The first YouTube guys like Pete Thorne, Ryan Bruce, those guys were just started when we started. I equipped all of them because they were recording in their bedroom.
Yeah.
Okay. Ola Englund. I mean, all of those guys started in the 2006 to 2008 to 2010 times. And we were there with a device that was helping them doing their gear reviews because they were playing at home.
Yeah.
Probably our conversation sounds weird to a lot of younger players who just came up 10 years ago with all those tools, which are so awesome and sounding good nowadays. Like, even the entry level amps nowadays are pretty good compared to the garbage I had to play with when I was a kid. I mean, Frank, we have the same age. Jonathan, I don't know. But like in 95 or 92 or even 90, your options when you were not a rich kid were pretty terrible.
Yeah.